Stotra.
Should we do a round of introductions, like when we have new people?
Let me just finish what I was saying, and we'll do that. Okay, great idea. So the first one is the hymn to the Guru, and I do this out of reverence for my teacher, Swami Chinmayananda. The second one is a chant that our study be well studied together. And Vinayak is absolutely right. We should go around and introduce ourselves. I'm Jim.
I'm Fang. Sarah. Deepa.
I'm Trevor. Hugh. Vinayak.
I'm Niyati.
That's cool. Should we do it again? So for the new people, we're wrapping up the end of the 11th chapter called the divine vision, Vishwarupa Darshana, the vision of the cosmic form, literally. And sounds like an acid trip, is what it is, because Arjuna gets his third eye open and he has all these visions of everything. But what it really is mystic symbolism. And the essence of the chapter is to meditate on the fact that all this phenomenal world is consciousness. One of the differences between the three great Semitic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and the Eastern religions, has to do with our view, our vision of what the phenomenal world is. In the Hebrew scriptures, we get the classic image. You are the potter, I am the clay. So we have this idea of a potter making a pot. In that paradigm, there are three levels of causation. What we call material cause, instrumental cause, and efficient cause. So if I'm a potter and I'm going to make a pot, what do I make the pot out of? Clay. That's something other than the potter. Where do I make it? On the potter's wheel. That's the instrument I use. That's something different than the potter. Then there's me, the potter. Very different paradigm in yoga. In yoga, the idea is the phenomenal world comes about in the same way that you and I dream. You are the god of your dream. So, what do you make your dream out of? The very fabric of your mind, imagination. That's the material cause, consciousness. Where do you do it? You don't have to take a TV screen. What's that beeping thing?
Sorry, it's my phone. I'm turning it on.
Oh, okay. You don't have to take a computer into your ears to draw the dream. Your mind is the very place where you do it. It's the instrument. And who does it? I do. So you are the material, efficient, and instrumental cause of your dream. The Eastern scriptures say the same thing macrocosmically. We have four great utterances that come from each one of the Vedas, each one of the Upanishads from each one of the four Vedas, that condense all of yoga into these four very terse statements. They're called Mahavakyas. Vachati means to speak. We get the English word voice. We get the Latin word vox from the same word, same root. The first one, Prajnanam Brahma. Ultimate reality or God is consciousness. God's not a man in heaven with a long beard, with anthropomorphic qualities. I like Deepa and I don't like Trevor. None of that. That's nonsense. It's superstition. You have a God who hates and judges and condemns and throws lightning bolts. Fire it. It's not real. Ultimate reality is consciousness itself. It's the ground of being of everything. Prajnanam Brahma. Where is it? How do I find it? Second Mahavakya. Ayamatma Brahma. This self is Brahman. This self is consciousness. Of course, the students say, oh, Guruji, your consciousness, I'm a worm. Oh, yes, the great saints, they know their consciousness. I'm the piece of poop the world revolves around. You've heard that one before, haven't you?
Absolutely.
That's what I think. And then the teacher says, no. Tat Twamasi. What's that one mean?
You are not.
Yes. Oh, me? How can I be God? I can't even pay my rent on time. How can I be God? Have you seen my desk? How can I be God? God's supposed to be all love. There are a whole lot of people I just don't like. Can't be true. So then we go through a process of what is this tattvamasī really mean? And I call it the cosmic striptease. So you as an individual have a physical body. In a sense, God has a physical body. It's not the statue that you see in the temple. It's not the painting of Jesus. The body of God is the whole creation. That's the physical body of God. You have what we call a subtle body, a world of thought and feeling. God has a subtle body. It's called the total mind. The Sanskrit term is Hiranyagarbha, which literally means golden egg. It's a technical term. It means the sum total of all the thoughts and feelings that have ever been thoughted and felt, past, present, and future. Have you ever been to a psychic? Or what do they call the leaders of the Mormon church? The dude who's there in Salt Lake City, what's he called? Prophet.
Prophet, yeah.
Yeah, prophets all through the Bible.
Yes.
When the prophets tune in to prophesy, what do they tune into? The total mind. And you read Edgar Casey?
Akashic records.
Yeah, that's the Western term. Akasha is actually a Sanskrit word. It means space. It means space.
I guess in Hindi it's sky. So,
Sky, same thing.
so
Sky or
interesting.
space.
Yeah.
Akasha. So the total mind. Now, you have what we call a karana sharira, a causal body. These are these deep, unconscious impressions that impel us into desire and ultimately activity, and behavior. If you're a scientist and like a neurologist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist, we can say, well, these are these genetic tendencies plus the stuff from our family of origin that make us do stuff. Yoga would say, well, actually, we brought it in from another lifetime, some of them too. Don't have to worry about it. You don't have to believe in reincarnation. It's not necessary. But the fact is, we do experience these unconscious tendencies that then sprout and flower. Macrocosmically, God has a causal body. And in Sanskrit, we call it Ishvara. How's Ishvara usually translated?
Just Lord or God or
Yeah, it comes from the root ichati, which means to wish or to will or to intend. It's kind of interesting. In the Hebrew Bible, there's what we call the Tetragrammaton, the IHVH, which you're not supposed to say. And whenever you read in a Hebrew Bible, what do Jews do today or have for a couple thousand years? They say another word, Adonai. What does Adonai mean? Lord, the ruler. So that dimension of the infinite is the total vasana. All the seed impressions that cause everything. One of the great examples is like you can take like an acorn, the potentiality of the oak tree is in the acorn. Microcosm, my unconscious tendencies. Macrocosm, God the Creator. Now, at the core of your being, I am not the body, I am not the feelings and thoughts, I'm not even my unconscious tendencies. I am witnessing consciousness. Quiet mind with my attention introverted when I look within. Nothing there. But that no thing shines as the light of your awareness. It is, I mean. The ground of being of the whole universe we call Brahman. Your consciousness, so that witnessing consciousness in you and that ground of being of the whole universe, they are the same thing. So this is the essence of the teaching. It's very simple. Our job is to be spiritual scientists. In science, we're given hypotheses. And then you prove or disprove them in the laboratory of your own experience. That's what the scientific method is. So in Vedanta, in yoga, give up belief. Give up things that you cannot directly prove in the laboratory of your own experience. Jesus died for our sins. Prove it. Isn't that heresy? If it's true, you should be able to directly experience it. When you die, you go to some other planet. You get to be God on another planet. Prove it. Oh, Kali, when you see her, she's got bones around her neck and stuff like that. How do you know your imagination didn't just project that? Funny, I've never met a Christian who's had a vision of Kali, the mother. Never met a Hindu who saw the Blessed Virgin Mary. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's imagination. What's real? That's what we're ruthlessly wanting to investigate. Now, as we start a journey like that, what happens to the ego? It starts to freak out. Everything I've held sacred. Maybe it's not true. Maybe it's not true. Maybe everything I thought I was isn't who I am. So what this chapter has done in the language of mystic symbolism, Arjuna, our spiritual every person, has been shown the cosmic vision. What is his response? He freaks out. He freaks out. His ego can't take it. This is too terrible. It's too terrible. I want to just see you as you always are. Because they grew up together. So that's kind of where we are. The essence of the chapter is to see God in and through everything in creation. We're heading into Advent in the Christian calendar. We're going to be preparing to celebrate the nativity of Jesus. Well, there's an earlier incarnation. The birth of Jesus is not the first incarnation, it's the second one. What do I mean by that? Who here knows the prologue to the Gospel of John? You remember it? You had some Christian background upbringing.
I think I think I remember it. So in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God.
And the Word was God.
Was God, that's right.
And was not anything made but by the Word. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. You got it. It's the purest Vedanta. So logos, Greek word, means word, but it's more than that. So in English we have anthropology, philology, etymology, all these sciences that have come from the word logos. So it means the complete understanding, the embodiment of something. Doesn't mean scriptus, something you write on a piece of paper. So in the beginning was the Word, the cosmic Christ. And in the Greek, in English we say, and the Word was with God. In the Greek it actually says, and the Word was face to face with God. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. We'll riff on that tonight. But the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Hinduism, we could say the Logos is Mother Shakti, or Prakriti. And there's many words for her. And was not anything made but by the Word. So it's not God plus creation. What we're seeing is a world of name and form. Is consciousness appearing as name. Huge implications to this. For you Hindus, we have this thundered in the Chandogya Upanishad. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Idam is shop talk, it's technical language. All this means the phenomenal world. He goes Kalu, which means verily. It's all Brahman. The phenomenal world is all God. And Hugh, we were talking earlier about Richard Rohr. This is what he just riffs on in his book, The Universal Christ. That the first incarnation of God is the phenomenal world. It's all God. It's all. If we have eyes to see. Open that third eye, the jnana chakshu, the eye of wisdom. All right, where are we in the scripture? Anybody know what verse we're on? 40 something, aren't we?
45.
45.
What page is this? Objectively? There are two versions of the book, so it might be best if you look for chapter 11, verse 45.
But how about close? At least should be close in number.
726 is okay.
815 in my
It's either 726 or 850.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, help us out, please, Deepa.
Sure. Adrishtapurvam rishitosmi drishtva भयेन च प्रव्यथितं मनो मे तदेव मे दर्शय देवरूपं प्रसीद देवेश जगन्निवास. I am delighted, having seen what was never seen before, and yet my mind is distressed with fear. Show me your previous form only, O God, have mercy. O God of gods, O abode of the universe.
So Arjuna has had this mystic vision, and he is not yet prepared enough to stay there. It's frightening him. And he says to Krishna, take it away. It's too intense. Threatens my ego too much. What he's really saying here is, am I the hole in the donut? If I let go of all these ideas and beliefs, then what do I hang on to? And Yoga says, nothing. Because you're already safe. Already safe. The self in you is never touched. Don't believe me. Don't believe me. Keep checking out this grounded being, this witnessing consciousness. See if it's anything else other than witnessing consciousness. Maybe on Tuesdays it's a little gray ball with wings. Mine never has been. Remember, if you can see it, it isn't you. You're the one doing the seeing. Who sees the phone? I do. That's yourself. If you can see it, if you can know it, if you can cognize it as an object of awareness, it is not self. You are the witness find out who this witness is. And it's happened with Arjuna. It's this thing that happens to many of us. When I get the sense of my ego starting to disappear, I get scared. Now, this is setting up one of the arguments we're going to take at the beginning of the 12th chapter. So we'll get more about this. Going on, please.
Verse 46. Kiridinam gadinam chakrahastam ichchami tvam drashtumaham tathaiva tenaiva rupena chaturbhujena sahasrabaho bhava vishwamurte. I desire to see you as before, crowned, bearing a mace, with a discus in hand, in your former form only, having 4 arms, O thousand-armed, O universal form.
I just love this verse. So his idea of an ordinary person is someone who's blue with 4 arms running around with a crown and discus and mace. What's it mean? All these objects that Krishna holds have a symbolic meaning. The mace is power, the discus is discrimination. What else does he have? I'm having a senior moment. What else does when you see
Lotus.
a lotus? I think that's wisdom. Then what's the others for?
He doesn't always have fluid, right?
Well, that's a different form. That's just
Different
like if you look up there, that's just the 2-armed form. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the 2-armed form. But the idea, it's a reference to some of the statues see or paintings you see of Lord Krishna. But I always think that there's this 4-armed kid running around when they were bosom buddies as kid, and nobody thinks that that's unusual.
Oh, the 4th is a conch.
Yes, the conch, which he blows. Yes. So he says, basically, I want to go back to God with a form. Can't bear the formless, the infinite, the powerful. Remember I said that the one verse that was the crux of the whole 11th chapter, when Krishna says, I am all devouring time. Everything is impermanent. He says, don't worry about the war. I've already killed everybody. What does that mean for you and me? Things like all relationships end in death or divorce. Think about it. If you're lucky, you both get hit by the same bus at the same time.
Or different buses at the same time.
Whatever. But the point is, all relationships end up there. Queen Elizabeth, how long was she married? 70 some years. I don't think she's going to live another year. She had a great love affair. He's gone. She's not going to last much longer. That's for suffering. Or I say things like, well, for young people, these are your choices. You can have a long-term relationship and end up with an old, wrinkly old person. Or you can keep turning them over if you want a young, hot lover. Think. You have a long-term relationship, guess what happens? You get old. Every job is going to end. Every car is going to break down. Everything in this world is temporary. If we hold on, clutch, we suffer. All right, next verse.
Verse 47. Sri Bhagwan Uvacha Maya prasannena tavarjunedam rupam param darshitam atma yogat tejo mayam vishwamanantamadyam janme tvadanyena na drishta purvam. Graciously by me, as the Blessed Lord said, graciously by me, O Arjuna, the supreme form has been shown to you by my own yoga power, full of splendor, primeval, infinite. This universal form of mine has never been seen by any other than yourself.
So here Krishna is saying that for most people, no one else has seen the divine form. Krishna has, by grace, given it to him. Actually, great Mahatmas, those of us who travel this path, can see the divine form. Meaning, I see God in and through all the phenomenal world. The one who saw it in the Western tradition and articulated it, I think the best, was St. Francis of Assisi. He spoke of a sense of being related to everything. The famous movie Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. Still a good movie. Little sacrament. Has the idea. You know what he called his body? Does anybody know? Brother Ass, like a donkey. So he had this sense that he wasn't his body. And his dying words, this is recorded. Welcome, Sister Death. This complete surrender to whatever experience comes. He saw the cosmic form. All right, next verse.
Verse 48. Naveda yagya dhyanerna dane na cha kriyabhirna tapobhirukrai evam rupa shakya aham dridoke drashtum twadanyena kuru pravira. Neither by the study of the Vedas and sacrifices, nor by gifts, nor by rituals, nor by severe austerities can I be seen in this form in the world of men by any other than yourself, O great hero among the gurus.
So, one of the things that happens in Hinduism and in all religions and Hinduism also, advocate preparatory practices for purifying the head and the heart, the mind and the emotions. Spiritual psychotherapy. In the Hindu yoga traditions, there's ritual, there are sacred baths, there are pilgrimages, there's purification of your diet, doing yoga, doing pranayama, those breathing exercises. In the West, we have this active versus the contemplative life, this classic split. Should you be a monk or a sister where you're active in the world, teaching preaching or helping the poor or doing works of charity? Or should you be like a Carmelite in a cell, just in contemplative prayer? And the answer is very simple. These practices are to be done sequentially. So in Gita, we have chapters 3, 4, and 5, which are all about karma yoga, how to act in the world in a way to purify the inner equipment, the head and the heart. Then in chapter 6, we learn to meditate. Then in chapter 7, we learn what we're going to meditate on. We were talking about the cloud of unknowing hue. There's a long discussion on this active life, which then matures into the contemplative life, turning it. So what Krishna here is saying, don't mistake the means for inner purification with the goal itself. Frequently I'll use, because I'm a foodie, the example of when you're cooking and you need to slice a very ripe tomato. So if you get one of those great, big, huge, really ripe red beefsteak tomatoes, fine, ripe, and you have a knife that's dull, what happens when you try to slice the tomato with the dull knife?
It's squished.
So what's the preparatory action that you have to do? Sharpen the knife. You've got an electric knife sharpener. Here's your tomato. It's nice and sharp. Tomato isn't sliced. Tomato's still not sliced. We're confusing the preparation, slicing. So people get caught up in ritual and activity, doing stuff, reading books, thinking that's going to do it. But our problem is spiritual ignorance. Antidote to ignorance is knowledge. Classic story that we get so frequently is snakes and ropes. So someone steps on a wet length of rope and they freak out because they think it's a snake. So where's the snake? Really? My mind. How do I get rid of the fear of the snake? Investigate. You look down and go, oh, it's not a snake. It's just a length of wet rope. Likewise, I have fear. I have shame. I have low self-esteem. I have paranoid self-obsession. I call it the shit fairy that sits on her shoulder. How am I doing? Am I okay? What do they think of me? None of you have that fairy sitting on your shoulder, I hope. Do you? All of it is based on thinking I'm something other than I am. This chitchaya, this jiva bhavana, this attitude of feeling like I'm a person. Basically, I think I'm a body. How did we discover that the snake is not real? I investigate. that gives me knowledge, not theoretical knowledge, not a book. Every time you step on a wet length of rope, it will seem like it's a snake. That doesn't do me any good. I gotta, you okay?
Yes.
I have to directly investigate. That's what we do. The way to end the problem is to have the direct experience of who I am. How do I do that? In a quiet mind. That's the knife sharpening. All these practices that we do to quieten the mind. Then I have a radical reversal of the attentive faculty. I'm going to give up being concerned about what I see, either gross, world of objects, or subtle, world of feelings and thoughts and memories. Instead, focus on who or what is doing the knowing, not what I know. Oh, who am I? Vicharena, by means of investigation. That's how we dispel the problem of ignorance. All right, next verse. How are we doing on time?
Verse 49. Mate vyatha cha vimura bhavo ishtva rupam goramitram drim medam vyapeta bhipritamana punastvam tadeva me rupamidam prapashya. Be not afraid nor bewildered on seeing such a terrible form of mind as this. With your fear dispelled and with gladdened heart, now behold again this form of mine.
So Krishna brings him back ordinary, worldly, ego identification. Because to see the truth is fearful. He's not ready for it yet. So we may have these deep moments of meditation, but they don't last. This is why, from a spiritual standpoint, psychedelics are a dead end. Ram Dass said, I gave up psychedelics because I got tired of getting to the gates of heaven being thrown back to earth. The problem is you come down. So what yoga does is it digs out the roots of our spiritual ignorance. Digs out the roots of it. It's work. It's work. I'm not a moralist. It just doesn't work. You know how I know this? I was an old druggie. All right, next verse.
Verse 50. Sanjayraja ityarjunam vasudevastatoktva swakam rupam darshayama sabhugya ashvasayama sacha bhitamenam bhutva punah saumya vapur mahatma. Having thus spoken to Arjuna, Vasudeva again showed his own form, and the great souled one, assuming his gentle form, consoled him who was so terrified.
Yes. So Sanjaya is the narrator of the tale. So he's talking to the blind old king, and he says, so he assumes his ordinary two-armed form that Arjuna was familiar with. Next one. What's happening?
Sorry, I got really cold here, so.
Verse 51. Arjuna vacha drishta vedam manusham rupam tava saumyam janardana idani masmi samvritta sacheta prakritim gata. Arjuna said, having seen this, thy gentle human form, O Janardana, I am now composed and restored to my own nature.
So when he's back in ordinary consciousness, what this means for you and me, when I'm back in the position of God as other. There's God out there, either the Murti that I have in the temple, God in the sky, God as other. And I'm back in my own ego identification. That's safe. But it's little. From that ego position, that's where our suffering comes from. But here Gita is saying it's okay. Supreme vision is not instantly available. If you have body identification, I think I'm my body. Talk of Jagan Mithya, the universe being illusion, is just ridiculous. You think your body is real. Swamiji used to say, a personal God is as real as your own ego. If you are identified, hang on to the feet of God as you understand God. If you can drop that personal sense of self, then the personal God will also drop away. Tattvamasi, you are. Going on.
Jim, can I ask what you mean by the personal God disappearing? Like, if you get identified with the self, then you no longer will look for a Krishna or a Durga?
Well, you know with them what they are. They're just projections of mind.
Also, you drop the mind.
So in the end, I can't remember which Upanishad thunders. Swadhyaya pravachanecha, swadhyaya pravachanecha. Do you know which one has that at the Infinite by any chance? I don't remember. Anyway, it means our self-study, teach this to one another, but at the beginning of that one, it says it's not that which you worship here. I think it's Cana, but I'm not sure. It's not that which you worship here. If we're ego identified, by all means, worship God with a form. But when you drop the personal sense of self, then you see that, oh, God's the ultimate subject, never an object out there. We were talking about William Johnston the translator of the Cloud of Unknowing. In his book, Christian Zen, he talks about going to do a Zen sesshin, which is a long Japanese form of meditation retreat. And in the meditation retreat in Zen, you have dokusan, which is a meeting with the Roshi, with the meditation master. So Johnston goes, and of course he's this expert in the Cloud of Unknowing, and the Roshi says, well, how's your meditation? What are you doing? And he says, well, I'm using the Cloud of Unknowing technique where I'm putting a cloud of forgetting between me and the world, and a cloud of unknowing between myself and God. I'm endeavoring to pierce that cloud with the dart of the arrow of my love. And the Roshi says, good, keep at it. Pretty soon your God will disappear. Johnson gets a little upset at this. And he says, and you argue with the Roshi, and he says, well, I thought I would disappear. And the Roshi says, yes, it's the same thing. If that's not comprehensible, put it on the shelf, because Krishna is going to address that at the beginning of the 12th chapter.
Mhm.
Did that make any sense, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah. Next verse.
The next two verses are together. So 52, 53. Sri Bhagwan Vacha Sudur Darshamidam Rupam Trishtavanasi Yanmama Deva Apasya Rupasya Nityam Darshana Kankina Naham Vederna Tapasana Danena Cheja Yaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drishtavanasi Mam Yatha. The Blessed Lord said, very hard indeed it is to see this form of mine, which you have seen. Even the gods are ever longing to behold this form. Neither by the Vedas, nor by austerity, nor by gift, nor by sacrifices can I be seen in this form as you have seen me, in your present mental condition.
Yes. So the operative point is in your present mental condition. The only way to see God in and through all the forms of the creation is to realize the self. When you know the self in you, you will know the self in everybody else and everything else. Yoga thunders, the mind is the world is the mind. Stop the mind and you stop the world. But something remains. Going on.
Verse 54. Bhaktya tvananyaya shakya ahamevam vidhorjuna kyatum drashtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha param tapa. But by single-minded devotion can I of this form be known and seen in reality, and also entered into, O Parantapa, O scorcher of your foes. So here he says, through single-minded devotion. Oh, does that mean I've got to stand on the street corners and chant Hare Krishna and give flowers to people? You can't do that. Many people have a small idea
of what bhakti yoga is. Bhakti yoga is the path of devotion. Here, Krishna is saying through single-minded devotion. But if we switch scriptures for a moment, there's a great book called Viveka Chudamani, Viveka Chudamani, the crest jewel of discrimination, written by the great Saint Adi Shankara. And when he's talking about the qualifications of a fit student, he'll say, others say that bhakti, devotion, alone is supreme. Those of us who are intellectuals, meet the world through our minds, who may not have the simple capacity to just love God. Are we left out? And Shankara says, the constant attempt to live up to our own real nature is also considered devotion. So you can be devoted to an ideal. You can be devoted to social justice. You can be devoted to animal rights. You can be devoted to gay liberation. You can be devoted to voting rights for all people. You can be devoted to science. Do you understand what I mean? Devotion to an ideal doesn't mean you cry over test tubes at night. It doesn't have to be that kind of emotional connection. For some of us, we have it, others of us, we don't. But here, Krishna is saying we need to have this single-minded devotion to this work. Then we get the fruits. Another way to phrase it is what we call mumukshutva. Who can tell me what mumukshutva is?
Seeker liberation.
That's a mumukshu, is a seeker of liberation. But what is mumukshutva?
A burning desire for liberation.
Yes. I tell you, self-realization is not difficult. Krishna himself says easy to perform, but it's very rare. Very rare. And the reason it's rare is nobody wants it. You may have romantic ideas what self-realization is. But then when we come into real contact with the tradition, and they say, Vairagya, the desire to give up all attachments to enjoyments gained through the senses, and that desire to give up all identification with any form of self, starting with the body up to and including Brahman, the creator. It's Vairagya. Maybe in another life. Right now, I have my desires. I'll stick with them. So we don't want it. That is like the alcoholic who has lost their friends, lost their job, lost their peace of mind, and who thinks, if you had my problems, you'd drink too. Not realizing it's the drink itself That's the Brahman. So you and I suffer. How does Hamlet say we grunt and sweat under a weary life? Because we're convinced getting what I want will make me happy. It's a lie. Getting what you want just gets you what you want. And when yoga says you have freedom when you are no longer tyrannized by your desires. Takes us a while to bottom out. How are we doing on time?
7:54.
Okay, I think we're going to make it through the end. There's what, 2 or 3 more verses?
Just one more.
One more. Okay,
Should I move on?
go on.
Verse 55. Mat karma krin mat param mat karma krin mat paramo mat bhakta sangha varjitah nirvera sarva bhuteshu yasamameti pandava. He who does actions for me, who looks upon me as the supreme, who is devoted to me, who is free from attachment, who bears enmity towards none, he comes to me, O Pandava.
So here he summarizes the teaching that we've had up to this point in the Gita. So we'll take each one of these ideas briefly. First one, the person who does actions for me. So this is where we find we have a new employer, Krishna, God. God is the agent. I turn my will and my life over to the care of an infinite power. These things pop out from all sorts of traditions. All my actions, giving them to the infinite. What's the next idea?
He who does actions for me, who looks upon me as the supreme, who is devoted to me.
Yes. So, what is the great commandment that Jesus shares with us when he said, when asked, what is the greatest of all the commandments? Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and soul and mind and strength. Echoed here. Same command. Next idea.
Who is free from attachment.
Yes. So it is my clinging, my attachment, my control issues that get in the way. Yoga never says not to enjoy. But when I want it different than it is, I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, more better, different. That's when we start to get into trouble. Do our best, let go of the rest. Free from attachment. Those of us in the 12-step program, we call it acceptance. Next idea.
Who bears enmity towards none.
Yes. So we have to be free of our resentments. Where have we heard that before? I Again, in the 12-step tradition, Bill Wilson says resentment is the number one offender. The whole process. Learn free from anger and resentment and blame. Why? Because as long as I think that my misery is caused by what's out there, I'm a victim in life. Once I can begin to take a little bit of responsibility, I have a part, then I can do something about it. Nobody can make us feel anything. They do what they do. It's we who decide, I'm going to let that person's actions upset me. Is that the last of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
he comes to me, O Pandava.
And these are just a quick, brief outline of much of what we've covered in these 11 chapters. We'll end here tonight. Then there's a little Upanishad, a little final verse here.
Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagwad Gita Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Vishwarupa Darshan Yogo Nama Ekadasho Dhyayaha. Thus, in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagwad Gita, in the science of the eternal, in the scripture of yoga, in the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 11th discourse ends entitled The Yoga of the Vision of the Universal Form.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.